Hey guys, I'm Pixel Dan, and this is a review of the 2015 variants of the Nickelodeon Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. That's right, the original 4 figures in the Nick Turtles lineup get a re-release this year with some brand new paint decos. So let's go ahead and check these figures out. Now, as you can see, each of the 4 figures comes on that brand new blister card packaging featuring those brighter green and yellow backgrounds, and of course an image from the cartoon series in the upper right hand corner of the card back. And when you flip those packages around to the back side, we get a bio for each of the 4 turtles, and down below that, a look at the ever-growing collection from Playmates Toys. Alright, so let's go ahead and get these 4 figures outside of the packaging and take a closer look at them. Now, these are exactly the same as the 4 figures that were originally released all the way back in 2012 now, but the difference this time around is the paint deco. Now, specifically the difference is going to be seen in the eyes, the elbow and knee pads, and the belts. The skin tone and everything else is pretty much exactly the same, and the sculpt work is still the same awesome sculpt that we saw on those 4 figures, which also means that the articulation and everything is the same as well. The big difference here is that the new paint deco colors their elbow pads and their knee pads to match their bandanas, we have letters on the belts, and the eyes have been painted in. This is kind of neat because it's a neat nod to both the cartoon series, where they do have pupils most of the time, and the vintage toys, where they had the letters on their belts and the colored knee pads and elbow pads to match their bandanas. So let's go ahead and take a look at the 4 turtles individually here so we can see what we're looking at. I want to go ahead and start off with Raphael because he's actually the best looking figure in the bunch. Now, I bring that up because one of the weird things going on with this new lineup of figures is that the paint deco is a bit sloppy in some spots. It seems to be a pretty big problem on all of the figures, so it's definitely something you want to pay attention to. But, as I said, Raphael here is the best of the bunch that I picked up. You'll notice that the sculpt itself is the same as I stated, but this time around Raphael does have painted in green eyes in the mask, and it actually looks really cool on Raphael. I like the way it looks. It's a great look for the character. The other big difference, of course, is the R that is on his belt. Now, anybody who grew up with turtles like myself, remember that the belts used to have the little round badges with their initials on them to help you tell them apart in that classic toy line and cartoon series. Now, the belt is the same as what we already saw. They basically just put a little tampo on there with the R on there. You'll notice it's a little off-center on Raphael because of the way his belt is with this little latch right here that's sculpted on. It would have been neat if they were given brand new belts to kind of give it that more vintage feel, but this works fine, and it is nice and clean on there. Otherwise, he does just have red painted elbow pads this time and red painted knee pads. They were brown like the rest of his wraps there before, so now they're red to kind of match up with his bandana. So overall, it's a pretty neat refresh for the character, gives him more of a vintage feel. The articulation, of course, is the same as what we already saw in these figures, so I'm going to go ahead and show this off once, and just know that it's pretty much the same on all 4 turtles. The head's on a nice ball joint, so it can look left and right and kind of bobble around there. Got the shoulder joints there, so the arms can go outwards, forwards, and backwards. You got your swivel at your elbow, your standard joint at the elbow, your swivel at the wrist, really nice hinge joints at the thighs there, so legs can go outwards, forwards, backwards. You got swivels at the knee, you got a standard joint at the knee underneath the knee pad there. So the turtles here, just like those original releases in 2012, actually have some of the best articulation in this entire lineup, and it still functions very well. And of course, just like that initial release, Raphael does also get the little tree, the plastic tree filled with extra weapons, so you can peel those off there. It's pretty cool. We got the little half size and the ninja stars and everything there, so you can always peel those off and use those as well. And of course, he just has this classic size as well. Alright, so let's go ahead and move on to Michelangelo. Again, the skin tone and everything is exactly the same. Mikey does have new blue eyes painted in, which actually helps to add to the overall look of the character. I really like it on Mikey as well. Again, the only other differences are the orange painted knee pads and elbow pads this time around, and he's got that round badge with the M on it that's tampoed onto the belt. It actually looks very cool. I really like the overall look here. Articulation functions the same, and of course he does come with that little plastic tree that's got the extra accessories, so you can just pop those off there and use those in addition to his nunchucks if you want to. But otherwise, he is the same as that initial release with those new paint jobs. Alright, so now we're going to bring in Leonardo, and Leonardo is the first one of my batch that starts to see some problems. He does have those painted in eyes. He's got some nice blue eyes. However, if you look real close there, you'll notice that the little eye tampo is a little off. The eye is kind of printed onto the blue mask a little bit, which makes his eyes look a little big and a little funny. It's not too bad when looking at him from a distance, but when you really start looking at him up close, you can see how it's not a perfect paint job on the eyes. Now, just like we saw with the others, he does now have blue elbow pads, he's got blue knee pads, and he's got the L painted onto his belt, so all of that looks really nice. I do have a bit of a paint slop on his foot, unfortunately, where part of the white wrap kind of bled onto his foot. That could just be a mistake with mine. So the biggest issue here is those eyes. It's definitely something you want to watch out for. Of course, he does also come with his own little extra accessories there. Got that little plastic tree with more weapons, but he does also come with 2 katana blades, and he's got that great holster on the back so you can house those katanas there when not in use. And lastly, this is going to bring me to the one which is my biggest issue. Donatello's eyes are really bad, and unfortunately in the stores I was flipping through them and I was trying to find the best paint jobs I could, and every single Donatello I found looked like this. I don't know if they're all going to be like that. I think it's just an issue that definitely seems to be happening with the eyes. So this is something right here, and I definitely wanted to bring this up so I can show it to you guys. You gotta watch for this when you're buying these in the store. For some reason, these tampos just are not getting printed onto the figures the proper way. So you can see that his eyes are really, really wonky. He's supposed to have like brown pupils, and you can see it's just not colored correctly there, and it's totally stamped like on the mask. It's not perfectly in the lines there, so it kind of makes him not look as good as he should. Otherwise, the other differences, of course, are the purple painted elbow pads, the purple painted knee pads, and he does have that D on his belt. And again, his is a little off-center like Raph's because of that strap there in the sculpt. They had to kind of move the little tampo off to the side a little bit. So definitely a word of warning with these guys. When you're looking them up in the stores, pay attention to the eyes to make sure that you get the best paint job possible on these. Alright, so we've taken a look at the new figures. We can see that they're very similar to what we already saw with the original roundup, so let's go ahead and do this. It's comparison time. Here I'm putting all of the turtles alongside the original 2012 releases so you can see the paint job differences, as well as their vintage action figures so you can see the similarities with the painted elbow and knee pads and the initials on their belts. So overall, I want to say that I really like this idea to refresh these figures. These 4 turtles are absolutely some of the best figures we've seen in the relaunch of the Nick Turtles. And it's very cool to kind of keep putting these out there so that fans and kids always have a chance to pick up the turtles. And making them slightly different by painting their elbow pads and knee pads and adding the pupils is a really cool touch. It's also neat adding in those initials to the belts, gives them more of a vintage feel for those of us who grew up watching the turtles as kids. I kind of wish that the belts were painted black to kind of really further that vintage feel, but you know, it's pretty cool the way that these look. The biggest downfall here is the paint job on the eyes. You definitely have to watch these because it seems to be an issue across the board, because when I found these in the stores, there were several of them that had messed up eyes. I had to find the best eyes I could for Leonardo and Donatello, and as you can see, even the ones I picked up aren't the best. So aside from that, this is a really fun refresh, and hopefully those eyes are something that Playmates can fix down the road, so that way fans won't be running into issues with sloppily painted eyes. So these new variants of the original 4 turtles are starting to hit store shelves right now. So happy hunting, my friends, and hey, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit that like button, and also don't forget to subscribe and check out my other Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles video reviews. Until next time, my friends.